Hi, Todd VanDenburg here with VanDenburg Capital Management and another Uncommon Sense update. So since our last update, the markets have come up a little bit. Some have been asking, okay, so did we hit the bottom? Are the markets starting to come back? Should we expect, some good growth for the fourth quarter of 2022? And the short answer is nobody can really predict for the 100% certainty. There's really a bunch of mixed messages coming in right now. The first message is when you look at third quarter earnings of the S&P 500, with about 10% of companies having reported, you've got roughly 2/3 of them coming in with positive earnings surprises, which is normally a pretty positive indication of what might be coming. But the reality is that the earnings growth of the S&P 500 is really at its slowest rate since early in the pandemic. So in order for the stock market to go up significantly, you really need some good earnings growth. And I think I'm doing this from memory, but I think the estimated earnings growth in the third quarter was like 1.8%. I mean, it's not anything significant. But positive earnings are positive earnings, right? So if things are better than publicly traded companies thought, at least for the third quarter, then that might lead them to want to do more growth type things in the fourth quarter. But there's no guarantee. And when you add to that the fact that we've got an election coming here in just under 3 weeks, I don't see much changing in the fourth quarter as far as companies making big moves until we get past the election, so that they know, all right, so who's going to be driving the bus? Are the rules of the road going to be changing a lot? And as I've said in prior updates, my strong preference is for divided government. I think that when either party controls everything at the federal level, the most extreme things tend to get done. And while each side seems to like the things that get done when their side is in control, it just tends to be something that most Americans on average don't seem to support. So I'm really hoping for divided government, but we'll know in 3 weeks. In some other pseudo-related news, President Biden just announced that he's going to be releasing another 15 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve with the intent of keeping oil prices down. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you here, but 15 million barrels he's going to release. Now, currently, right now, the U.S. They import about 4 million barrels of oil a day. So the 15 million barrels of oil that we're going to be releasing from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, it really only covers just under 4 days of the amount of oil that we import. So we use, I'm going to check my notes here real quick, so pardon me. We're using, there we go, 21 million barrels of oil per day as a country. So 15 million barrels of oil is a rounding error. The big problem is that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was never intended to be used for this purpose. It wasn't intended to keep prices down. It was intended to if there was a disruption in the oil supply, like happened in 2011, that we'd have plenty of oil, and we typically keep around 680 to 700 million barrels of oil in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And the thought process was, when this was created, is that if there's a disruption where oil can't make it into the United States for whatever reason, then we've got oil that we can use to shore things up, so that if this 4 million barrels a day that we import, we've got plenty of oil in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, so that we're not having to go, oh my gosh, it's going to go back to the 70s, and we've got to ration things, and you can only fill up your gas tank depending on the last digit of your license plate number. If it was odds, you could go on odd days, and if it was even, you could go on even days. And for some of the younger people watching this video, I know that seems completely foreign, but yep, that was the 70s. So in any case, it doesn't bode well for us should something really happen where there's a disruption to the oil supply, to the global oil supply, because we've depleted it down from roughly 700 million barrels of oil down to about 400 million barrels of oil. And to add insult to injury, at some point we're going to have to buy oil back to put it in the strategic petroleum reserve. So not a big fan of what the federal government's doing right now. I don't think it's a good economic policy, and I don't think it's a good policy for the country as far as security goes. But I'm not in charge of everything, so I don't get to make those calls. But as it affects the U.S. economy, nobody should think that oil prices are going to come down or gas prices are going to come down measurably simply because the Biden administration is pulling money out of the strategic petroleum reserve. It's just not enough to really have a real impact. We're not likely going to be back down to the prices when the Biden administration came into office for years, likely, just because we're importing oil and OPEC is cutting their production with the specific goal of trying to make more money on the oil that they drill. So enough about oil. Monetary policy, I've talked about that a lot. The Federal Reserve is still likely to continue raising interest rates, and new housing starts have come down. I think I just read a report that they're down like 8% already, and interest rates continue to rise for like 30-year mortgages. I think they're somewhere around 7 now. And just again, context for people that have never had a 7% mortgage. Prior to the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, a 7% mortgage was not unheard of. So they're not historically high. They're just high to an entire generation of people since about 2008 who've been able to get mortgages at 3%. So they're more than twice as expensive as many mortgages that people have gotten even just last year. But historically, they're not anywhere near as high as they were in the late 70s, early 80s, where I've had people tell me that they got 30-year mortgages at 15 and 18%. So 7% is not great. It's absolutely having an impact on new home construction. Permits are falling. Just in the neighborhood that we live in, in the past year, there were plenty of new homes going up, and there's like literally no new home starts in our neighborhood right now. So that's going to have a trickle effect, right? If builders aren't building, that means the Home Depots of the world and the electrical supply companies of the world and the lumber companies of the world, the demand for those things is going to go down. And that's part of what the Fed's trying to do, right? They're trying to kill demand so that if there's not enough demand on the supply, then prices are supposed to come down. Again, as I've said in prior updates, I fundamentally disagree with this approach. I'm going to show you a quick chart of the M2. It's called the money supply. It's basically the money in our checking and savings, the money that we're sitting on. And as you can see, since the pandemic, the money supply, the M2, has skyrocketed. And this is because of what the federal government has done. It's borrowed money and stuffed it into the economy, for good intentions. I will presume that they did it with the best of intentions. But when you so significantly increase the money supply while constraining goods and services, inflation is the outcome. It's not even debatable. So once this money makes it into the money supply, into the M2 chart, the government can't pull it out because it's in our hands. And so now, the only thing that's going to change this is when the supply of goods and services gets high enough to pull out some money out of this money supply. Now, on a positive note, the growth in the money supply, the M2, has slowed significantly. And so that gives us a better chance of catching up, because if you look at the chart again, I'll show it here again real quickly, you'll see that the growth of the money supply was really stable for the longest time. I mean, just it coincidentally grew at about the rate of the population growth of the United States, because, you know, the more people we have in the country, the more money is in checking and savings. But we need to get the money supply back on track to where it would have been normally had we not just printed all this money through the financial crisis. And that means that inflation is here to stay for probably a year, year and a half, maybe even 2 years. And depending on government actions, if the government decides that we need more stimulus, you know, inflation could be around for a long time. So that sounds like I might be pessimistic, but I'm just telling you what could happen. This is like the ghost of Christmas future. There's no guarantee that, you know, the ghost of Christmas future has it right. You know, you can change things. We've all seen the, you know, Scrooge. We all know that, you know, there's no, it doesn't have to be. We can change what's going on, and that's why the election is important. If we have divided government, then we won't have a bunch of new government spending, and the economy will be able to sort of settle into whatever the right normal is, given the rules of the road that are in place today. So as I've been saying in the last couple of updates, I'm not pessimistic, I'm just less optimistic, and my position may change, you know, depending on the outcome of the election. Two last final points. The Social Security Administration has come out and said for 2023, Social Security recipients are going to get over an 8% cost of living increase. So good for retirees. You're going to be getting a significant increase in your Social Security payments. And for people who are savers, but have had no place to save for over 10 years, well, you can actually get at local banks and at the online banks. You know, the online bank that we use, we're getting 2.25% on just liquid money without having to tie up our money for 5 minutes. And if you're willing to go out to like 12 months, you can get over 3%. And 2-year treasuries are over 4%. So there's real fixed income opportunities now that aren't amazing. They're not like, they're not anywhere near where they were pre-financial crisis, like in 2006, 2007, but they're at least better than the 0% or 0.1% that the banks have been paying for the last 10 or 12 years. So not everything's bad. You know, if the markets aren't going to be a place to be because of some economic things going on and some government things, there's at least on the bright side some positive places to put our money so that we can earn some money. But 4% sounds good, but not if inflation's 9%. So these are all moving targets. It's all stuff I'm watching on a daily basis, and we think you should too. If anybody has any questions about any of this stuff or what's going on in the economy, or what do I think about any financial matter, please give me a call, send me a message. I'm happy to respond to any question that anybody has. So that was your update. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like, give us a share, and I'll be back again soon. Oh, and no black eye this week. I'll be back again soon with another Uncommon Sense update. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to be the first to hear of more Uncommon Sense updates like these, please click the subscribe button below. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again.